Okay, going for a take. Take one. Action.
We are going for a take where we get the take of those who work in the film and TV industry on a specifically chosen film and about their time in the business.
Yep, and today's take is on the new Sean Baker film, Anora. And this is your spoiler warning.
And in today's take, we're joined with Lara Holtappel. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I feel like we need a little, like...
Yeah, I was like, do I clap myself?
Come on, guys.
Silence.
Yeah, no, it's really lush to have you here, dude. So we worked together on Waterloo Road.
We did.
You are my access coordinator.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really nice. It's been a minute since we last chat. So it'd be nice to have a little chin wag today as well.
Yep.
And obviously we all went to see Anora, which was insane.
Yep.
So yeah, what was everyone's general take on it?
I think I was a bit like silent afterwards. We were in the same screening.
Yeah.
And I think there was just a collective silence in the cinema. Like, it's not one you immediately want to go, oh my God, let's talk about it. I had to take a moment.
Yeah.
Because it was very intense. It's a film it's relentless. Like, it is relentless. As soon as it hits the gas, it's like continuous until the very end. So you need like a bit of a minute to decompress.
And then it just had like an abrupt ending. It was just, there was no like credit music or anything. It was just silence with the sound of the snow hitting the car.
And that silence as well, for me, like, I was just like, I was in awe by the end of it. Like, I was just like, wow. Like, I saw it was like 2.5 hours and I was like, oh, this is going to be long. I watched that at 8:30 at night. I was like, I'm going to get out of here really late. But honestly, it went so quickly and I wish it was longer because I really enjoyed it. It was great.
Had you seen any Sean Baker films before? I know you've seen quite a few.
Yeah, I think I went into this as a Sean Baker fan, so I sort of knew what to expect.
Cool.
I don't know, as non-Sean Baker people, if you were a bit like, okay, that was strange, or that was intense, or, you know, like he's always an underdog story where, like, the underdog doesn't win. So I don't know if you go in expecting some sort of different outcome. It maybe wasn't as satisfying. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but...
How does it compare to his other stuff?
I mean, it's definitely more intense. Like, I'm a big Florida Project fan, and I feel like Florida Project has peaks and troughs where you can calm down a bit. Whereas this, I think, you don't get a moment to relax. It's not a relaxing viewing experience.
No, it's not
one that you're like sat in and you're in for that ride. And that was very intense. And the performances are up there. You know, the moment it hits there, it's there for the rest of the movie. You're at that level. So it can be a bit uncomfortable at times. Definitely. I will say that, but a good discomfort, but uncomfortable nonetheless.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you're like sort of thrown into it instantly. Like the first scene itself, it just starts off really high to the point where when it goes low towards the end, it hits even more because you just don't expect it. And I've never seen the Sean Baker film, so I didn't really know what to expect. I know, right?
Get off the podcast.
Ooh, does he watch films? Yeah. But then, like, I knew about the endings of his films, how they're very like abrupt and they're very like they're just really painful to watch. And for me, that ending was like, I was in tears, I'm not gonna lie, like, because there was so much going on and I wasn't expecting it. I thought there was meant to be some like happy ending where it was like, oh, well, surely she's got to win here. Like, that's what always happens, right? So when she doesn't, I was just a bit like,
and you feel that pain.
Yeah.
You're there with her and it's like, oh, that's really painful.
And then when she started crying as well, that was incredible.
Yeah, how did you guys interpret that last scene?
Ooh, I think like Sean Baker is ambiguous. I think he doesn't want to explain. And I did my research on this, that he said he did have like an ending for the actors and that was for them. But obviously for the audience, we don't have that. It's just left ambiguous for us to interpret. So it was a tough one because I think, you know, you have this character, the sort of henchman character that there's a bit of, you're beginning to like him and you don't want to like him because he was not particularly nice to Anora when we first meet him. So in that scene, you're like, okay, is he actually going to lean into this moment? Or is he going to push it away because he respects her and he's gained that respect for her? And when he doesn't push that away, that advance away, it's disappointing, and I think that also leans into the whole of the narrative of the film, like the expectation that these people are trying to limit her and assume she's a certain type of person, and you know, degrading her job as well, and degrading sex work. And I think, you know, there's a moment where you went, actually maybe this person's humanized her, and he doesn't, and it's very sad.
Because she's a type of character, like throughout the whole film, the only way she thought she would receive love was through sex, and then at the end, I think she meets someone who actually cares about her, and I think that's what made her break down in this scene, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, and Mikey Madison is amazing in it. She's like ferocious, vivacious, just like full of energy. She's fierce, and then you just see those moments of like vulnerability, just like little glimpses like through the camera where like the characters are talking elsewhere, and you just see the face like drop, and she's like, wait, does he like me? Doesn't he like me? Like, or, you know, she's just struggling to find some sort of stability in her life, and, you know, everyone just wants to find someone to love them back, and obviously it doesn't work out, and then you just see it all crumble down at the end. And potentially, I guess, like you say, it is open for interpretation. And it's nice that he doesn't want to preach anything or tell the audience what to feel. I guess for me, it was like she just wanted someone to support her. And that's what she kind of ambiguously found at the end. But again, it was just kind of distorted. And I like that it was distorted because humans don't have any like black and white kind of personality. Like there's the guy, what's he called? Igor. Played by Yura Borisov, I think it was called. Yeah. He's amazing. Like, again, he's just so subtle with the work that he does. But yeah, I still couldn't work out whether, as audiences, we like to put boxes as to good guy, bad guy. Yes. And I'm still not sure whether he is. I couldn't hear when I was watching it what they were talking about with his grandma. There was something about he was looking after his grandma or something.
His grandma's car.
Yeah, and I think he lived with his grandma. I think the assumption, maybe she thought he was making loads of money out of this sort of business. And then when it's the reveal, like, I live at home with my grandma, you know, it's my grandma's house, I think he was saying. Maybe his grandma's not still there, but it's his grandma's house. And it's something maybe inherited. But I think that relationship was interesting because I, as a woman watching it, didn't want to like him, and I was there with Anora in that you know, that back and forth towards the end where she was still very suspicious of him and still on the defensive. Like, that was one thing, she is on the defensive throughout the whole film. She's scrappy, and I appreciate that, you know, there was not a moment where it lets up. You know, she's suspicious, she's questioning it, and she defends herself throughout it. There's no point where she sort of lets go. And even in that moment where he demands an apology from the family, you know, and we know they're probably not going to get that in that moment. You're like, is it? Are they going to say sorry? Is someone going to acknowledge this? And they don't. And she still goes in there with this, like, you know, combative, you know, screw yourself then, you know. There's no sense of her letting down, and she's got that wall up and that defense from the start. And I think maybe that's why the ending is a lot more of a payoff, because that's the first time you really see her break. And it's that moment of not relief, but she's letting that vulnerability out. She's not on the defensive anymore. She's not being combative, and she's not the perfect main character. And I think I like that about Sean Baker films is none of the characters in this films are perfect. There's always that moral ambiguity with them. It's always nuanced, and it's still finding the humanizing aspects of that. And I think that's Mikey, you know. She really finds that humanizing. She doesn't have a backstory. We don't know her family life. We don't know where she's come from. So she's really, that performance sells that for you.
I think as well that we don't know her family life was a big, like, quite important in that film, because it seemed like she had no one. So when she finally felt like she had someone, and it was a kid who she saw as this person who could potentially look after her financially, like that, there's some sort of security there. And I think as people in general, we all want security. We don't like to not know what's going to happen. And with her, it felt like she got that for a moment, and it all got taken away. and she had nothing to start with, so
Yeah.
it was everything to her, and that made everything more powerful. And there was a shot which was one of my favorite scenes, and it was literally her just facing forwards, and the lights in the background were blurred out, and it was just a focus on her face. She wasn't doing anything, she was just staring in front, and it just said the whole film in that shot. And the reason why was because she's got a defense up so much that you, from a two-dimensional point of view, you think she's attack because she's always like on the front foot. But then from a three-dimensional point of view, it's always like, actually, no, she's attack because she's defending herself, because if she doesn't defend herself, then what else has she got?
Definitely.
I don't know. Oh, go on.
I think in terms of acting as well, but the Stanislavski technique came from Russia, didn't it?
From the Moscow Arts
Yeah,
Theatre.
from the Moscow Arts, and a lot of these cast were Russian actors who trained typically in stage, and I think the guy who plays Igor, I think while they were off the set, he was very caring and nurturing to Maddie's character, and she said she isn't sure if that was the character or if that was him. So she's like she didn't know if he was who he really was, whether he was doing method acting. But I think I found that really interesting, because in terms of method acting, I never really understood it, but now I do. He was doing that to sort of develop that chemistry between the two actors.
Yeah, and I like the way that, again, this is just assuming that was his intention going into it. Maybe he's just a really nice guy. Hopefully he is. But I think it's really important to develop that chemistry with the other person. But also, I'd say it's interesting based upon like when we talk about like Western films and ways of acting. When we think about method acting, it's very like in your face. It's like, hey, look at what I did, and let's market it, and let's talk all about it, and it almost feels like slightly hyper stylized, maybe, when people method act. Whereas his method acting sounds like it was very subtle. It was kind of underplayed. He didn't really say anything about the work that he was doing. He just was the character, or just was the intentions that the character would normally be having with it. And you can see it in the interview that you're referencing as well. She's like, and it was only after it finished, I was like, so was that him or was that the character? Which is just really interesting to think about as well from acting perspectives too. And obviously we have to talk about Mark Eidelstein, I think he's called, because he is freaking hilarious. He's so good. There's one moment, I think it's one of my favorite moments in the thing. Both me and you just laughed out loud when he did it. He's on the bed, and I think it's the first time they're about to have sex. It might be the second time, I'm not sure. And he just like does a little like
I was waiting for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
and lands, hits the bong. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, what did you think of his character, dude?
Oh man, I just thought it was so chaotic. I thought there was so much to it, but what I liked about it was you couldn't really figure him out, because when you started to like get a grasp of him, he'd do something else and throw you off, and he'd be like, he's this kid, but he's got all this money, and then you're like, well, is he really innocent, or is he playing on the fact that he's a kid but trying to be older and this is his place, whereas it's his family's, and that he's not even in his room, like he's in his parents' room, and like who actually is he? I think one of my favorite references, because there was a lot of references in that film, my favorite one that he had was he basically dressed up as Gatsby for that party. And that like summarized the sort of character that he was, this charismatic, rich person who has this whole like, it's like ideal, but he's not. He's a kid. And as the film progresses, you realize that you see moments of it, of him just playing on a PlayStation while Annie's next to him, like, and then getting really annoyed because he lost on a game. Like that shows that kid side, but then you see the side of him where he's getting really, really messed up, really drunk on whatever he's on, and then you wonder, for me, like, why is he doing that? Why is he going so extreme with it? Because surely maybe there's something, maybe he's trying to escape something. Maybe I'm adding something there, maybe I'm not, but it was something I was thinking about through the whole film was this him, or was he trying to live a life that he doesn't have?
I think he only did it to distract himself. I mean, he even especially with Maddie's character, you know, he decided to go on a 2-day bender and get wasted instead of confront her and the situation and, you know, deal with it. So I think it was more of a distraction than anything.
Definitely. And just thinking about the way that he did it as well, and in fact all of them too. I saw something where they said that Sean Baker doesn't shout cut, he doesn't shout stop. They'll just keep rolling and seeing what happens next, which is so exciting as an actor or anyone just creative. I'm trying to remember, or even Mikey Madison was talking about a moment where she's doing it says in the script, she said that it says shows off her new flexibility, or shows off her flexibility, whatever. And so he's sat on the sofa, and she basically, through all her training, working with sex workers and going to clubs, she learned how to pole dance for like 4 months for a 20-second clip in the film. She learned how to do the club chat. She learned all this stuff, so she was able to improvise and choreograph. And she choreographs this dance and then showed it to Sean, and he was like, "Sin, yeah, let's do it. Let's just improvise and see what happens." How exciting to be in that kind of atmosphere. And I feel like that finds itself when you watch it in the film. It feels kind of spontaneous and fizzly and energetic as well. I do just want to talk before, because we have to wrap up pretty quick, about the representation of the sex worker community in the film, because like you said, you've seen a lot of Sean Baker's stuff and he does that a lot. Does that differ in terms of this one? Is it more?
I think the great thing about it is sex is on display, but it's not like in a it's like passionate romantic sex. It's going, this is transactional, this is her job, and it doesn't shy away from that. I don't know if that's going to be divisive with audiences, because there's a lot of sex in this film because it's about a sex worker. But I appreciate that, and I think they use consultants. They had consultants, and Mikey obviously used consultants as well. So, you know, they were using the appropriate avenues to get the information and make it authentic. And I think you can't make films about sex workers without sex in it. And I think they did it really well. I don't think it felt gratuitous in any way.
Definitely. I felt like if you're going to do a film like this, you have to do it all in. You can't shy away from things. And I think this film did that. And I mean, it's only been out for a day, so I've not seen all the like reviews and stuff, but from my opinion, watching it, it's very eye-opening, because I didn't know a lot about any of it. So when I was watching it and seeing what goes down, and I know it's still a film, but it's a film based on real life. Like it's got those life aspects to it, and I think that's important for any film. So when it's a topic like this in a film like this, in a comedy drama, like I think it taught me a lot, and I think that was important, because I didn't really know a lot about that. So it was very, very insightful. Yeah.
What do you think, my dude?
Yeah, I thought it was really, like, there was so many like twists and turns. I thought there was like so many moments where I thought it was going to get a whole lot darker, and then it just took you in a whole other direction. You know, I was going to think that his parents were going to have Anora killed at one point. You know, I thought it was going to take a whole lot more darker turn, but it just took off in the most realistic, crazy, chaotic way. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
that's a really good way of wording it as well, because it doesn't have a satisfying ending. It's unsatisfying, and that kind of feels what real life can be. There's no just like
Keeps you on your toes.
way where everything just falls, like, you know, it's messy and it's chaotic, and I think that comes across in the film, definitely.
It's a segment of a story for me. It's not the whole story, if that makes sense. And that's
like a snapshot of her life.
Yeah. And just before we wrap up quickly, one of the examples of that, which you were saying, was the dad, right? When he bursts out laughing, that just that just makes you go, there is some like there is humans at it, because they're like the whole film. They're like, oh, they're these bad guys or bad guys, like they've been demonized by their son, or this, like you don't want to know them. And then when Annie's having an argument with the mum, and then the dad bursts out laughing, I was just like, yeah, because that is what happens. It's not always so serious,
because you can tell like no one has spoken to her in that way ever, not even him. Like he's scared of his wife as well.
Yeah.
So he was just savoring that moment and enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, solid film.
Yeah,
really good.
That's a cut.
Cut.